Is Miriam Shaw, and this presentation is about my sociology interview project titled Social Media and University Students' Emotional Well-Being. In this video, I'll be sharing my interview experience, what I learned from my interviewee, and how my findings helped me explore my research question, which is, how is social media use associated with university students' emotional well-being, particularly feelings of anxiety or connection? Introduction/research. I chose this topic because social media plays such a major role in our everyday lives, especially for university students. I often noticed how social media can bring people together, but can also cause stress or comparison. My goal was to understand whether social media tends to make students feel more connected or more anxious, and how emotional well-being might depend on the way people use these platforms. The interview. For this project, I interviewed my friend Dua Mustafa, a student at the University of Houston. We met in person for the interview, which made it easier to have an open and natural conversation. Because we already know each other, the interview felt very comfortable, and Dua answered most questions thoughtfully. I noticed she became serious when discussing the negative effects of social media, especially comparison, but seemed cheerful when talking about art and creativity online. If I could repeat the interview, I would ask more follow-up questions and spend a bit more time exploring her emotions when certain topics came up. Research curiosity. My general sociology research question was, how is social media use associated with university students' emotional well-being, particularly feelings of anxiety or connection? I was motivated to ask this because I see how much time students spend online, including myself, and I wanted to know if this behavior affects our emotional health. I hope to understand whether social media helps people feel supported and inspired, or if it increases stress and comparison. I also wanted to explore how awareness and self control might make a difference in how students experience social media. Usage and habits. Dua shared that she uses social media for about 3 to 4 hours a day, mostly at night when she's relaxing. Her favorite platforms are Instagram and Snapchat, where she scrolls through art content, cooking videos, and her friends' stories. She prefers not to use her phone when she's around people, which shows that she values being present in real life. She says she doesn't rely on social media heavily and can easily take breaks if needed. Motives and activities. When talking about why she uses social media, Dua said she mainly uses it to find art inspiration, discover new recipes, and stay motivated. She described herself as more of a viewer than she is a poster. She enjoys watching videos rather than sharing her own. She mentioned that get ready with me videos or art related video content makes her feel productive and inspired, showing that social media can have a positive influence when used with purpose. Attitudes and perceptions. When asked about her overall attitude towards social media, Dua said she enjoys it and finds it entertaining and educational. She believes social media connects people and helps them learn new things. However, she also acknowledged the negatives, like bullying, stalking, and how people sometimes compare themselves to influencers online. She said she tries to stay on the safe side by being aware of what's right and wrong and avoiding toxic spaces. Impact. Dua described the overall impact of social media as mostly positive. It gives her motivation and makes her feel connected to creative communities, especially artists. However, she admitted that she sometimes compares her artwork to other online and starts to doubt her own talent. Even though she occasionally feels self-discouraged, she said social media has still benefited her by keeping her inspired and giving her new ideas. Surprises and reflection. What surprised me most was how balanced Dua's perspective was. I expected her to mention more negative experiences than positive, but she mostly described positive and motivating effects. This made me realize that social media doesn't impact everyone the same way. It really depends on how people use it and what content they focus on. The interview also made me think about how emotional awareness might protect users from anxiety or even burnout, something I hadn't considered before conducting this interview. Link to article/theory. My findings relate closely to ideas from the social comparison theory, which explains how people evaluate themselves by comparing their lives to others. Dua's experience supports the theory but also adds a new layer. She compares herself to other artists, yet instead of feeling constant anxiety, she uses that comparison to improve her own work. Compared to my assigned article, her responses supported the idea that emotional outcomes depend more on how people use social media rather than how long they use it. Takeaways. From this project, I learned that social media's influence isn't completely good or bad. It's about personal awareness and intentional use. If I could suggest further research, I'd recommend studying how creative students, like artists or designers, balance inspiration and self-comparison online. This project also taught me how important the interview process is in sociology. Building trust and asking open-ended questions helped me get honest and meaningful answers. I learned that every interview brings surprises and real understandings often comes from listening carefully rather than rushing through questions. To conclude, this interview helped me see that social media effects are deeply personal. For some students, it's a source of motivation and connection, while for others, it can trigger comparison or doubt. Through Dua's perspective, I learned that maintaining balance and mindfulness is key to using social media in a healthy way. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and that will be all.